Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. My name is Joe DeRosa, and I'm really happy to be back here because it's been about a couple of weeks since you've last seen my face on Cover One's YouTube channel. I have had a very busy, tumultuous summer, so these episodes have been a little trickier to record, but we are back, and so too is Buffalo Bills football people. Training camp has begun. The excitement of a new season is very much upon us, and I am extremely excited to be talking about relevant Bills news again. And on tonight's episode, we are going to be getting into our biggest training camp storylines ahead of the regular season. What are we watching out for? What are we keeping tabs on as something we feel is truly significant and impactful for the state of the Buffalo Bills this upcoming year? Things that we could see that we might not have seen before, development of specific players, all the more to make this team better. We're keeping our eyes on it. And of course, when I say we, I never mean me. I have asked this person relentlessly to come back on the show. The stars haven't aligned due to scheduling. It happens, but I am very happy to have him here tonight. The one and only Mr. Anthony Prohaska. Anthony, Cover One's very own training camp representative here in the virtual flesh because you're not actually here, but that's neither here or there. I got to stop with these unintentional puns. Welcome back to the show. It's good to have you. How you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's been a good time at camp. We're recording the night of day 2. It was super hot today. That was a big takeaway for me. It was really hot, but obviously we have so much else to get into. And especially like doing like this kind of conversation, like stuff going into camp, but then even like the couple things that have happened the first couple days have kind of changed my thoughts on things and made me like, oh, now I kind of like, I'm wondering about this, or like, oh, are they solving for this thing with this thing over here? And now it's just, man, it's just fun to have football back and be another day closer to actual real football in some form or fashion in the preseason and then the regular season. And it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm always happy to have you. And I got to say, having produced for you guys now for like a couple of months, doing yesterday's show, watching you guys both talk about football being back, it looked like you were both about to like tear up a little bit just because of sheer joy in your faces to have relevant news. And I feel the exact same way, man. It is truly exciting. It's exciting
it's hard to find stuff during the off season to talk about. It's so like you and I talk about in the DMs a bunch. It's like, dude, it's such a slog to figure out things to talk about because there's only like 2 things and everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, and my show has a curse, Anthony. I've said this on past episodes. It had a curse where when I'd go live, something cool or something that changes the entire structure of the episode would happen mere moments later. And a good example of this, there's 2. Right after I did an episode about Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi additions and free agency, you went live, and that's when the Joey Bosa news broke out. So I just missed out on that. And, that is not your fault. I am not blaming you here on the airwaves as much as I'm like, wow, that sucks. And then I did an AFC North preview episode with Max Toscano a couple weeks ago. And when we talked about the Steelers, we talked about questions, very questionable things about that team. And then what happened a day later, Anthony? I bet you can guess. A very meaningful trade occurred. And I'm happy to be recording this not on a Tuesday because now we're 2 days into camp. And I think that these things that we're talking about, knock on wood, will hold relevance and be, something that we're going to keep an eye on throughout the rest of the summer. But I want to get into this topic, Anthony, and I want to start it by just asking you, having been there for 2 days in a row, apart from the weather, which God bless you for sitting out in the sun today because that had to have been brutal. What is camping like? What's been your experience? And honestly, just your takeaways, biggest takeaways from it so far.
It's been good. I think I talked about in the film room yesterday, the energy that I think the team had, the energy from the fans is there, right? The Bills are a very solid team now, and there's all the excitement I think about the new stadium and Josh Allen being the MVP and the red helmets, and you can literally point to like 10 different things that could make you excited as a Bills fan. So the fans have that energy kind of coming in already, but the team just on both sides of the ball were really amped up, even just very, I don't know if it was because Hard Knocks was there. I think that's another thing to be excited about, but just very vocal in terms of going from segment to segment, drill to drill, active and vocal in drills, active and vocal in team. Like the first play, I think it was in 7-on-7 on day 1, Allen throws a pass to, I think, Kincaid over the middle, but Rapp drives on it and breaks it up. And the defense like erupted for Rapp, that to the point that I was like, oh, I was like, is that what we're doing? Okay, cool. Like and it just carried on. So like the energy has been great just overall, like on the practice field, from the team, in the stands, from the fans, seeing everybody there. It's been great. And then there's been some really cool stuff to see on the field, like some of the developments, some of the I I essentially just kind of had Max Hairston penciled in as corner two, and I didn't really
Mhm.
think. I was like, oh, Trey could win it, but Trey, no jinx, fingers crossed. Yep, exactly. Trey's looked great. Like, he does not look like a dude who's been hurt at all. And it's not just from a technique standpoint. Like, he looks quick and he's got some short area burst. And then he's still got like the technique and the knowledge and the spatial awareness and the responsibility. Christian Benford was unreal on
Mm.
day one. Keon Coleman looked really good on day two. There's fun schematic elements. So again, it's only been 2 days, and maybe some of this is bolstered by how excited we are for it. But it really does feel like, for a team that doesn't have a ton of questions, especially on one side of the ball, it does feel like there's been like fun developments these first couple days that are fun to track and kind of keep an eye on with each, subsequent practice and then leading up to the preseason and going forward.
Yeah, and great takeaways. I mean, I've been keeping up closely with your evaluations from camp. And if you guys haven't checked it out, follow in on Twitter because you're going to learn a lot. And he gives, I love the play-to-play basis that you tweet, the frequency, because I see like a lot of the beat reporters will cover things, but there's like those details that get missed out. And there are things that you're talking about, especially when it comes to not even just plays on the field, but coverages and like how they're aligning. Like you mentioned something about Rat being the safety closer to the line today. And I really like that. Like seeing Bishop as the post safety, I was like, oh, okay, that's something I've been speculating. Like, is he gonna, do that more, play that more frequently, be the primary guy? Like those are the things that I like keeping up with, and you've been doing a great job with it. But you bring up the defense and like them playing with a level of juice that, not to say we haven't seen it from them, but like they're amped up this early in camp. And maybe Hard Knocks does have something to do with that because you're on the camera, you want to look good. Why not? I do wonder if the AFC Championship just left an ugly taste and a bad taste in their mouths because let's face it, it was an ugly game. Yes, there were moments in the second half where the defense started catching their breath and made some nice plays and were able to get off the field. But a majority of that game was Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes having their way with the Sean McDermott defense again. All the the manipulation, the eye candy, the RPOs that they were able to get away with and create space with. It was an ugly game.
And it came on the heels of the Ravens gutting the Bills defense in the entire second half. And even that whole game, if not for the turnovers are an important part. If not for those turnovers, there's no stops for the Bills defense. Like the Ravens shot themselves in the foot. And when they weren't, they were just running through the Bills left and right.
Yeah, the second half, Derrick Henry came alive. They had a lot of explosive plays, especially on third down. And you saw kind of like a microcosm of the Bills season in that Ravens game where it took turnovers to keep them alive. Otherwise, they were going to get gashed and have to keep pace. The Chiefs game, they didn't get as fortunate. Granted, you could make an argument. Maybe Bishop did have a turnover. That's neither here or there either.
Man.
Yeah, I don't want to bring that back up. Sorry. But I think that there is an extra level of motivation between what happened in the AFC Championship and that Hard Knocks episode. And, when you guys referred to Terrell Bernard's comments on the show yesterday about playing with the level of aggression and playing with the new level of intensity that I think they really want to establish this year. And I think little moments in practice, whether it's day one, whether it's the final day, they're treating each one like it just clinched them the game. And I love that about it. And I hope it continues, especially when you have a lot of youth on the roster that leaves a really lasting and positive impression on, guys like TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, Deion Walker, Max Hairston. It's your first training camp in the league. You want to see a group that's galvanized and hungry and energized. Like this is a great thing to do for a youth infusion defense that's really going to count on these guys early in the season. So I love seeing that that's happening right now in camp. I hope that continues and we'll just have to see, but it's hard to believe it won't also because why would you stop now? So, I mean, any other thoughts before we get into the actual topics of this episode?
No, I think a lot of the thoughts will funnel into the topics for the episode. And yeah, it's fun time, exciting time. And this is a good football team that is looking to get better and finally get over the hump. And there's a lot of eyes on them, literally and figuratively. And yeah, I think it's going to be a fun off season and a fun season. Hopefully, again, I'm too superstitious to say things like that. That's so dumb. Fingers crossed, no jinx. Yeah,
fingers crossed, no jinx. That should be the episode motto. That's just going to be the caption for everything.
1,000%. Like, yeah, good. growing up as a Bills fan and a Red Sox fan, I don't care how many World Series the Sox have won at this point. I am forever scarred. I will never be secure in anything for my entire life.
I mean, yeah, I'm a Yankee fan, but I'm a Yankee fan born in 1996. So, like, I have lived through championships, but I've
Yeah,
lived
but
through one that I was conscious for. And I also lived through the fifth inning of the most recent World Series. So I'll never be comfortable again, even if we win 10 in a row. But I want to get into
that's a scarring. Yeah, man, I feel you. It's a brutal way to go
So,
out.
anyways, talking about the Buffalo Bills and training camp, we are going to share with each other on the episode right now our three biggest storylines that we are keeping up with going into the season. Anthony, I appreciate you putting a list together. I do not know what's on your list. You weren't supposed to know it was on mine, but I did tell you three just to give better context for the episode. However,
I forgot them
said
already, so don't worry about it. I forgot
Perfect.
them.
And I said them really fast. Not that I thought that would go over on him, but more so because I wanted to feel better about spoiling it. So, Ant, I'm gonna spin it back to you. I want to hear your number three. What is the third, in your opinion, biggest storyline that you're following at camp this year?
It's always so, and the same thing happens to me on Disguise coverage. I always have like my list, and then I get into it, and I'm like, is this one really three? Should this one be two? Should this one be? Okay, I'm gonna start with this one. I talked about it a bit on Disguise coverage, but I wanted, and this is minor. It ties into a bigger piece, but I'm really interested to see how the Bills mitigate the loss of Mac Hollins on offense. And
Oh,
someone might hear that and be like, well, he caught like 30 or 40 passes and like whatever. His run blocking role and just him in general, he was so important to this offense because of the body type and the skill set and the play style that he brought with him. And his functioning and being so assignment sound as a run blocker and really as a pass blocker too, on like RPO bubbles, screens, like the stuff like that. And then being also a capable pass catcher. Like before they got Amari Cooper, Mac Hollins was the cover zero beater, and it worked a bunch, and he was good. But some stats. He was 11th amongst all wide receivers in the NFL last year in run block snaps, and he led all non-Buffalo Bills offensive linemen in run blocking snaps last year. So he was very heavily involved from a volume, / quantity perspective. But he was good. So from like a quantity perspective, it was there. But from a quality perspective, it was there. And my question really kind of boils down to replacing him. And again, I think it's possible. Like, I'm not trying to say like they're doomed because they lost Mac Hollins, although I would have preferred to keep him. I just wonder how they replace him. Like, is it a like for like? Is it like, you know what? Keon Coleman's ready for that role. We're going to use Keon. But then it's like, do we want to use Keon more outside? Well, no, because we'll put Josh Palmer there and we can have Keon do the Mac Hollins stuff. It's like, oh, okay. Is it Dalton Kincaid? Is it Jackson Hawes? Is it Reggie Gilliam? If it is one of those guys I named, each one of those guys have different body types and skill sets and traits and play styles, which means different things for you schematically in terms of what you can get to, how you can get to it, formationally, alignment, concepts, all of it, both the run and the pass. And then if it's not with an individual, is it, more schematic? Is it, more personnel based? Yeah. Do you just go in, okay, we're going to go more 13 instead. We're going to go more jumbo, or do you replace it with formation and alignment? Whatever it is, if it's on an individual like for like basis, or if it's on kind of like, the Moneyball line that everybody uses now, if they replace them in the aggregate, like each one of those answers brings a different set of advantages and disadvantages. And again, that's not necessarily or inherently bad, but I'm such a high floor, like if it's not broken, don't fix it type of guy. So anytime something changes, I would rather that not happen. And especially considering how good this offense was last year, I would rather be fixated on like tweaking and building instead of replacing, even if it is something that may seem small or minor. But I had that question because, again, I think it's a potential domino in terms of what it means schematically and personnel and what they can get to and how they get to it.
I like that point a lot. And I think one of two things happens. I think it's either Coleman is that replacement. I think just based off the build, based off the fact that he can play strong, I think he's still developing it. But I think when it comes to run blocking and just the physicality he does play with, it's there for him to gain and play at an adequate level where you can replicate Mac Hollins' ability there. So I think that to me is the likeliest outcome just based off my perception. Again, you've seen them at camp. You've been able to kind of see the role that they've assigned him to, but we are 2 days in too. So we don't know what it looks like in a week if there is more consistency there. I would just bet on it being Coleman's role simply because they took him last year. They know that what the profile of the player is. They have big hopes for him. And I also think that role might be better for him when it comes to development in the NFL because to be honest with you, I didn't like the box he was put in last year. Now I understand when you're a rookie, you don't want to put too much on their plate. However, I found that a lot of Coleman's success came when he was either closer to the line or across the field. That's when I really liked him. And I think you got to showcase a lot of his really playmaking abilities that way. Because as a true upfield boundary player, yes, there were moments where it flashed. There were also moments where he just got completely wrapped up and covered, and I didn't like watching it. And I would rather have Keon Coleman be someone that's more of a threat, not only to be, just a conventional one-dimensional pass catcher, but rather a blocker that maybe in certain formations leaks out to a route. And all of a sudden he creates a ton of space. And when the ball is in his hand, you get the best thing about him, which is when the ball is in his hands, because I think that's his best trait personally. I think he does really well in the open field. And I think that could be a great way to just build up confidence and really rapport for your second-year player. The other path is just, again, like you alluded to, replacing the role with a different player, a different position. And I wonder if that's based off early camp show out Reggie Gilliam.
Bro, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole because I've done it every year where I've wanted more Reggie Gilliam.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because Dawson Knox is out or because this was going to be the plan anyway, but he's been getting a lot of burn and a bunch of, I talked about it today, like he was on the field a bunch. They're sending him in motion. They're shifting him. Like they're using him as the adjuster piece in the offense. I like what he does. And he's got some athleticism and he's a hammer. The sledge handle is not like a joke. Like he mashes people and I really like that.
And I do too. And I have been for years a proponent of let's get Gilliam the ball more, get him more involved, because I do think a lot of success on the ground comes when Gilliam's on the field. And maybe it's not Mac Hollins, maybe it's not a receiver, but that doesn't mean you can't scheme up short routes for Reggie Gilliam. That doesn't mean he's not going to be a plus run blocker. It just means it might look a little different, but all means to the same end of first downs and scores. So if it has to be Reggie Gilliam, or I know this is only happening because Dawson Knox is hurt, Killdozer, Jackson Hawes, I would love that too. Now, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to overhype Jackson Hawes because I know Jackson Hawes is really just like a true blocking tight end that might get some receiving chops. But wouldn't it be so sick if he actually was like a dependent on tight end in his first year where the blocking prowess is there? That's kind of what sold them on him. And all of a sudden, he actually becomes a vital part of the receiving game if Dawson Knox is not healthy. And that just adds more to the fire, especially if you go in like heavy personnel or you add a sixth OL and Jackson Hawes on the same side. Like, I think it can be replaced, is kind of the point I'm trying to get at. I think it's not, and not saying you're saying the inverse. I know you alluded to it can be, but I would say one of those two paths. It's going to be a different player taking on a role that might alter what they lean on, what they depend on, or it's just Keon Coleman and they run more of the same thing conceptually. And Coleman does a really nice job slotting in. And I think that is also realistic. And I think you saw some flashes of that with Coleman today, as you were tweeting about how he had some success on the field, getting open. And I'm so glad you brought it up because that actually ties directly into my number 3, which is Keon Coleman's development. It was my third biggest. And the reason is I've talked a lot about like the other receivers, Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore, and what I think their outcome could be. Coleman has so much variance in projection just because, again, year one, there was flashes, then he gets hurt, then the flashes kind of go away. But you saw moments from him where you're like, I could see it. I think the year he could have this year could be anywhere from like, oh my God, he is that guy, to, oh Jesus, here Christ, here we go again. Year two is a year 2 offensive skill position player that's just not panning out. But like, without Hollins is literally what I wrote down in my notes, like, and the additions of Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore, does that make it so that Keon Coleman can line up in the slot more often because he was primarily a wideout? And I would love the idea of him being closer to the line and getting more routes over the middle of the field to, where I think he can separate, where I think he can create havoc and be a productive playmaker. And again, does that build the player up and do some of the changes potentially to the Bills offense expand his skill set even more? I'm more interested to see it if it is like a direct result of how the Bills are tweaking things offensively, because I think that's a sustainable approach to Keon Coleman when you talk about what his limitations are and what can possibly hold him back at the next level from college, and how that could be mitigated even if you're not asking him to change anything drastically, like his weight or like, the style he plays with.
Mm.
I think that Keon Coleman's development, also why it's such a big storyline for me, is the just direct impact it has on this offense. You're talking about a player that, if he sees his potential, is an athletic freak, could do wonders for your receiving core as far as threat over the middle of the field, threat upfield, threat in the run blocking game, what that can do for the Bills creatively. There's just a lot of benefit from his development going in a positive direction. And I think we're seeing flashes from him again. And I hope they stay consistent, because if they do, Anthony, I'm really, really excited about this receiving core, because I already love Khalil Shakir. I think Khalil Shakir has this role solidified. Whether you think he's hit a ceiling or not, it's still a very productive player. I'm a big fan of what Josh Palmer brings to the table, just stylistically as a receiver. Same thing for Elijah Moore. Granted, I don't think Moore is going to get nearly as much run as Palmer. Mm-hmm. And then I really like Curtis Samuel. I think Curtis Samuel came on at the second half of the year last year when he got healthy. He's a productive player. He's someone that Bills use really creatively. If not for injury, you probably saw it a lot more often last year. So take all those players, now add in a Keon Coleman that develops. I think you have one of the better receiving cores in the league, and it's a huge storyline for that reason. So that's really all I got on Coleman. What do you think, Ant, before we move on to number 2?
I think Coleman is a really interesting one, just especially because he's so polarizing amongst the fan base. And for me, he's really interesting because I've said this line so much. He was my wide receiver 9 coming out in that class last year, but I thought he had the widest range of outcomes of any wide receiver. And the example I keep giving is, if you told me, at the end of his, career, he ended up being like a really strong or high end wide receiver 2 or a low end wide receiver 1, I'd buy it. If you told me he was out of the league in 4 years or 5 years, I'd buy it. If you told me he was a career 1-year contract guy, because multiple teams kept being like, we can be the ones to finally tap into the skill set and unlock everything, I'd buy it. Like, he really could be anything because he's so raw, but he's athletic, doesn't have a ton of experience, is green, all that kind of stuff that's been talked about so many times. But he, of the receivers that I think are making this roster, and you talked about them, right? Like Palmer, Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and I think Elijah Moore will make it. Mm-hmm. Coleman is really the one who has true, like, individual, non-scheme up, inside outside versatility. Like, he is the guy who in theory can be your X on the outside and should be able to win one-on-one and bully guys, but could also be more of a power slot, and then also could be like a move guy a little bit. Like, he has so much potential to tap into, which, to your point, like, unlocks a lot of options for this offense. And in this year, where they are trying to solidify some roles and are trying to solidify the wide receiver core, it would be nice if the guy that, you spent a second round pick on last year went along and developed and kind of made you look right for trading back multiple times in that class and picking a wide receiver in a very heavy wide receiver class where a lot of wide receivers are balling out from that grouping. So I think there's also, like, the fan perspective and the narrative piece in addition to the on-field stuff. Yeah, I think it's a really intriguing one. And if anything, and you know what, even just from, like, I was tweeting stuff yesterday, be like, oh, like, this happened or this happened. And the amount of people who will come in and be like, notice you haven't said anything about Coleman, he must really suck. And I'm like, Jesus, like, that's where you go. And then I tweeted about
day one.
Right? Day one. And then I tweeted stuff today about how good he was looking. And people on the other end be like, see, all you had to do was wait a day. This dude's going to be an all pro. And I'm like, why are we doing this game? Like, it's just, I do think he's a very polarizing player amongst the fan base because of, and again, because the Chiefs took Worthy and Lad McConkey got taken after, and but just, there's so many things that, like, always seem to come back to Keon Coleman somehow. I do think he's an interesting one, and one that fans, whether people think it's, a topic to watch or not, he is the talk seemingly of, like, almost any Bills fan at any point.
Yeah, agreed. He's a polarizing prospect and player. He's a player that they're hedging their bets on. I mean, the magnitude of taking him with their first pick in the second round basically their first round pick.
Yeah.
It means a lot for the fans. It means a lot for the team, and you're going to see a lot more on his plate this year. And it's up to him to succeed with it, because if he doesn't, there are going to be a lot of questions about his future on the team and in the NFL. And especially for a player that doesn't have a fifth-year option, where if the end is near, it's a lot more near than if they had taken him in the first and had well, if he's okay, maybe we extend him. This is a player that, he's a project, and I have a lot of patience for him, but I do expect more this year. And that's really all I'm trying to say from him, is more consistency. Like, even if you told me Coleman's going to finish the year with 750 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, I'd be like, yep. Like that's fine by me. That's progress. It's not perfect, but like I can take higher end wide receiver 2 numbers from him and be totally fine with that, especially in the context of the Bills scheme, where they're also going to be distributing the ball heavily to a lot of different targets
and running the hell out of the ball
and running the hell out of the ball. I said this last year, Anthony. I'm very honored that I ended up being right about it. But my prediction from last season was that the top 3 reception leaders on the team would be 3 different positions. And it ended up being that way, because it was, if I remember correctly, Shakir, Kincaid, and Cook. Those 3.
Cook was definitely in the top 3. And Shakir
he was
definitely one.
That
Cook
was
definitely 3.
That was my hot take, by the way. My hot take was James Cook would be top 3 in receptions. I'm very glad I was right about that. I'm just giving myself a pat on the back because I'm not right about a lot of things. But Keon Coleman, that's a player that I think there's so much gravity to the storyline. There's a lot of gravity to him, and his success is the Bills' success. He would take them to a place that I don't think they've gone to, because the viability of him as an actual receiving threat, in addition to how the Bills can run this ball with their offensive line, it makes them a lot more dangerous. And, there are other players in this receiving core that you could make that argument for too. Like, hey, maybe Josh Palmer has a John Brown-like ascension, like 2019 John Brown-like ascension for the Bills. And you see production from him that you've never seen. I think that would also have a lot of impact. But Coleman is like, we know that the ceiling of this player, if realized, is like, dangerous, like a true alpha threat. So that's why it's my number 3. Number 2, Anthony, I'm interested to hear what you have for it, because I don't know if we align on any of these.
One of yours that I do remember could tie into this one overall, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to leave it for you, though I do agree with it.
Yeah, cool.
I'm trying to figure out one.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to go this one. This one isn't too much to talk about. It's pretty simple and straightforward. I just want to know if so, how much the structural or schematic tweaks and changes to the defensive side of the ball. I, for years, have, and part of this too, there is some bias in it for me. I gravitate towards more defenses, from a personal standpoint. I gravitate towards more 3-4 hybrid type of defenses that are very attack minded. I love, especially in today's football, simulated pressures and creeper pressures all day. And then mixing that in with 5 and 6 man pressures. I love zone blitzes. Like, I love fire zones. Like, I love match coverage and man coverage. So in a lot of ways, the Bills defense doesn't play to what my heart desires. They are very, sound, and they have been for years, and athletic and aggressive, but it's a traditional 4 down front nickel. Things are pretty static. The craziest thing you're usually getting is like, oh, what coverage are they spinning to on the snap? But even that is like, all these teams are doing like really cool, non-traditional Tampa spins and Tampa 2 robber or invert and changing who the pole player is. And the Bills do like some of that, but not really. The biggest thing is really just like, on the snap, before the snap, we had 2 high safeties, but on the snap, we switched, and now it's cover 3. And it's like, okay, like, that's still cool. That you still change the picture, but also could maybe be a little bit more. I think some of who they've been and the type of body types and archetypes that they've gone for have been why they get beat in the playoffs. And I think it's been a combination of Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's in the playoffs. I think they haven't necessarily had the right kind, not necessarily haven't had firepower. I don't think they've had the right kind of firepower to be successful in the playoffs from a personnel standpoint. And I also don't think they've had the right game plan in terms of an X's and O's standpoint. And so from a personnel standpoint, Jimmys and Joes, they leaned more into what they've already done. Max Harrison is a bit of a departure. We'll see if he starts in terms of what they usually look for at the corner archetype. But on the defensive line, on the interior, they leaned harder in what they've already done. Like they leaned more into inside rush and penetration and gap shooters. On the edge, they have gone more with compression and have not gone for athleticism or bend or dip. They've opted for power and length and compression. So from a personnel standpoint, they just leaned into what they've already been doing. So we're not going to see any changes there. But schematically, I think we can. And, you bring in Ryan Nielsen, who everybody in the Mothers talked about a bunch. And then you bring in, the secondary coach of the CB's coach from the Patriots, whose name I always forget, Pellegrino.
Like Pellegrino.
Thank you so much. He specialized in a lot of man coverage and things that they did in New England, a lot of single high structures and a lot of man coverage. And then Nielsen, all the 5-man pressure stuff that he was doing in the stunts and games and twists and then sims and creepers and all that. And I add that up with what Terrell Bernard and Greg Rousseau, individually on separate episodes of the Film Room told Eric and I unprompted when they talk about winning on early downs and, closing down airspace and things like that. And I hope this year, again, I'm not expecting a radical change, but I am looking for and hoping for more man coverage in high leverage situations or more match coverage. Like I don't want as much standard spot drop. Hey, we're just going to play zone and it's 3rd and 5. We played cover 3 and there's an easy completion to somebody in the flat for 6 yards or the seam is open and boom, there's an easy completion. Like I want to see more blitzes. I want to see more man coverage. I want to see more attacking. I want to see more press. I want to see more press man. I just want more disruption instead of the static play. And it's funny saying that because this is a Bills team that has been towards the top of the league in turnover creation. Like, so they play fast, they play aggressive, they make plays on the ball, but then it also feels like they're toothless at times. And, I think they're going to struggle to defend the run on their interior and the spine. I think they're going to get displaced. I think they're going to get blown off the ball again on the interior. I think they can counteract that in ways like they did last year with, run blitzes, gapping out, loading the box. And then if their guys can shoot gaps properly and, withstand a little bit, I think they have the chance to be better because Dwayne Carter and Austin Johnson were very ineffective last year. And Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson were worse, which is why they were booted off bad football teams in the middle of the year. And then the Bills picked them up to help them for a playoff run. But that's a conversation for another time.
Jordan Phillips did make debatably the most impactful defensive play in that game, which I think is insane too. Again, the AFC Championship, which is so ironic because I agree with you, but
that pisses me off more because people are like, man, Phillips played so great. I'm like, no, he didn't.
No.
He got pushed all around. It's the same thing with like Linval Joseph made a couple cool plays and everybody was like, man, he was such a force in the middle. No, he wasn't. He was getting pushed all around. He had no legs left. Like, what are we doing? And I think they're going to struggle in that regard. So my hope is they can counteract that with, just more creativity. And if you gap out on early downs, you get to 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6, and you can play some man, you can bring some 5-man pressures. I think for as much as they've been so good in the Hayden Poyer era of like disguising coverages on the back end and having interchangeable safeties and all the things that they're able to do, I think some of the game has passed them by defensively. And it's even more frustrating knowing the offense has leaned into more modern football. Hey, body types and condensed formations and being able to access more of the menu without having to turn the page. And then the defense is just like, no, we're just going to keep doing what we've already done. It's the example I always give is the episode of The Office where Pam tells Michael not to date her mom. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to date her harder. And that's what the Bills did. They leaned harder into what they've already done, which is fine, but that kind of hasn't worked from a personnel standpoint. So are you adjusting it schematically? I think they need to. I think they have to. We've seen some potential breadcrumbs for that starting early on in camp. A lot of checks, a lot of adjustments from a man coverage and a match perspective. Adjusting to motions, shifts, changes in formation and alignment. Bobby Babich and company really drilling that down. And again, I think I think Max Harrison is a move towards the type of defense that I'm looking for. But Trey could also play in that capacity as well. So I think, I just think they need schematic changes and tweaks. Again, they're not going to become a predominantly man coverage defense. They're not going to become a predominantly blitzing defense, but I think they need to work it in more. You can't just be like, oh, we're playing the Bills 3rd down. Yeah, they're going to rush 4 and play cover 3. Like you just can't keep doing that. And then I think everything compounds, and which is why when you get towards the end of the year and your entire catalog is on tape, the best are able to be like, oh yeah, we know who they are. And there's not really a mystery. The biggest wrinkle they've ever had was when they started working in that odd mirror stuff against Kansas City. A couple years ago in the regular season. They've done it against Kansas City almost every time they played them, and it's continued to work, but nothing else has. So yeah, it would be nice to see that. So it's arguably my first. I have a schematic tweak on offense as well that I know you're going to talk about, but yeah, that's a big one for me because I've been clamoring for it for years. Like they need to restrict airspace and then also marry the rush and coverage better, which is tied into this, but a separate conversation kind of as well. I'm just frustrated with this defense because they're also not a bad defense. They're not bad, but it's also like, again, like I said, like they're aggressive and fast and create turnovers and havoc, but they also feel toothless. It's such a weird juxtaposition, and that pisses me off.
It's driving a Corvette that's automatic. It's not driving a stick shift speedster. Like that's kind of it. It's you have a defense that does fly upfield and does want to create havoc, and that's good and great. But when you're running out the same coverages and same tendencies, it gets snuffed out no matter how aggressive you are. And I mean, like, you've seen examples of teams in the past that have kind of an MO of what they do defensively, but when they face higher powered offenses, they do get solved because at the end of the day, if you're not going to do enough to change the norm of what you've been doing, then what good is it if you're going to face someone that just can either out talent you or wear you down progressively throughout the course of the game?
And I think a great example, like I know he just got fired, but like Lou Anarumo, who shouldn't have gotten fired.
Dude.
Like
he shouldn't have.
But like big game Lou, like if there was a big game, he was not changing their identity, but like he had a game plan specifically built to screw you up.
The second half of that Chiefs AFC Championship game where it was rush 3, drop into coverage, but they could do it because they also had the line firepower to succeed in a 3-man rush, which must be nice, but it's those types of things. Like, I totally agree. And I think you might see more of it because I think with the addition of Mike Pellegrino, who, by the way, his dad's San, water salesman in Italy. Isn't that crazy? But
is that true, or are you making this up?
No, his father's name is not San Pellegrino. Sorry, I had to do it. Yeah. So, anyways, the addition of Mike Pellegrino from the Patriots defensive system, which, we know a lot about it. It was a very man coverage heavy team, and they did a lot of cool disguising in their secondary. I think he would bring some refreshing ideas to Babbage's and McDermott's defense as far as how to mix things up and how to dress it up a little bit better and how to kind of break from your norm and make it look a little different. But also,
I don't think you bring in a guy like that real quick, like, unless you're going to play more man in some
100%,
either from an overall usage standpoint or in high leverage situations. You don't bring in that guy to be like, hey, welcome to the team. We're going to play a shit ton of zone. What do you think? And he's like, that's not really what I do.
No,
not that he can't, but like, it just doesn't.
Yeah. And some of the bodies they've drafted over the past couple seasons, mainly this season, because last year wasn't that many, but like Cole Bishop and then bringing in Max Hairston and even guys that might not have as good of an athletic profile, but like Dorian Strong, Jordan Hancock, like these are guys that I think are better suited for a more man heavy, not man leaning, but man heavy defense. And the athleticism that they play with gives them the ability to kind of, in my opinion, respond better to when teams are trying to attack you by taking advantage of vacated space and making you come back to the ball, which I think was a huge problem for the Bills defense last year. When you watch guys like, and this is not meant to jade the player or validate a fan base that thinks he's the worst player on earth, but like when they take advantage of DeMar Hamlin having to come up from depth and make a play in space, I think you have personnel in the secondary specifically better suited to play from depth, which I think would help them a little bit more, and then better suited to play in man coverage, whether that is Max Hairston, whether that is Trey White, Benford, or even Dorian Strong, who has man coverage chops if he succeeds in camp. I think that this team is better suited to pull off tweaks to the defense. I hope to see it too, Ant, because I definitely agree that it's almost like chewing a piece of gum where it starts out very minty and like the Bills defenses of like really the earlier parts of the Sean McDermott or like mid parts. So we could talk like 2019 through 2021, where the league didn't fully transition to that heavy rushing attack, like kind of ground and pound style. And, I don't want to be reductive here. Like, I know it's not only that, but like leaning more on a power run attack and being able to displace people on the ground. The Bills defense was perfectly suited for that, like flying high, pass down the field style of attack that they'd see from offenses. And you had two of the best safeties in the league to be able to cover for you for that. They age out, they become less effective. And also that shift on offense for a lot of teams puts you in trouble. And I think it's just about readjusting things. And I think that they have made moves to do that. So I'm a little optimistic that we will see that. How they do it, I'm curious about. I know I'm just going to actually bring this to my one because this is my number one, but it ties better in with the conversation. But mine focuses more on the defensive line, depth chart, and rotation. But one note I had here was really with.
This is my one too.
Okay, perfect. So we can keep going on this and we can actually close out with spoilers. It's play action. We'll end with that because it's play action. But defensive line, depth chart, and rotation. So, like, for me, before I get into the actual bodies in the D line, it's really just you talked about Ryan Nielsen, and that's been the name I keep bringing up in conversations because I think his impact's going to be not just there, but massive for this defensive line. And even if they didn't change the personnel to be more athletic or change the profile of rusher, I think how they rush is going to change. I think how they rush changing is going to be a massive positive for this defensive front because I think the linebackers they have to complement the D linemen that are already upfield penetrators would really work well, especially if Nielsen is getting creative by, like you guys have talked about in the film room, 2 to 3 man games, different types of stunts, different creative ways that you can get your defensive line to attack a pocket. Now, all of a sudden, when you talk about Sims, creepers, and if Terrell Bernard's words mean potentially more 5 to 6 man pressures at a higher rate than what they were last year, because they were towards the bottom of the league in blitz rate, I think you are going to get a defense that does live up to the aggressive nature they set out for themselves, but can also execute and fix their biggest problem, which you guys did a whole episode on it, the third and long conundrum. I think, first off, the fact that they actually are one of the better teams at generating third and long is the funniest shit ever because it did not feel like that at all. And you guys both being like shocked that it was great. But really, like, closing out and being able to help a secondary that maybe is still a little bit in transition with more creative ways to rush the passer, with more bodies in a blitz, whether it's just simulating different things, whether it is crossing up your defensive tackle and edge rusher more often. Like, those are the things I want to see from them, and I fully expect to happen. And I'm very glad that they brought Nielsen in, and then just complementing with the defensive line options. I mean, with Hoyt and Ogunjobi out, does this help TJ Sanders and Landon Jackson potentially, depending on how much run he gets, or Deion Walker in being effective pass rushing threats early in the year? Because even if they as players individually haven't fully panned out yet, does the dressing of the scheme make it so that they're just in advantageous positions where, hey, TJ Sanders might not be refined, but he's one-on-one with a guard and he's just going to get low and bull rush the shit out of him, and all of a sudden he's got a clear lane to a quarterback. Or, hey, Landon Jackson might not be as polished, he's still learning how to play a little further out wide, but we just ran this interior stunt that forced the quarterback to go to his side, and all of a sudden, boom, like, this is great. These are the things that I'm very intrigued by. I think we're going to see a lot of changes to. I think that even if you have concerns about how the coverage pans out this year, this alone, if this is a potential improvement for the team, is a huge one for a defensive front that needs to finally be able to close in key situations. And it's why it was my number one.
Yeah, it's my number one for pretty much everything you said, plus the run defense pieces that I talked about, plus we still don't as of right now, the Bills kind of have like an edge one in terms of pass rushing, but they also kind of don't. Like, I keep using this analogy or metaphor or whatever it is. I think Greg Rousseau is much more of a Batman, or is much more of a Robin or a Nightwing, depending on who you value more, than he is a Batman. And I think he needs a Batman to run with him. Or you need another like Nightwing or a Robin, or you need 2 Nightwings and a Robin. Like, you need an ace up front. Or you could have like 50 aces like the friggin' Eagles did last year. But like, you need like a Chris Jones or a Trey Hendrickson or a Max Crosby. Or again, it could be on the interior, it could be on the exterior, like some form or fashion, right? I think Ed Oliver is Ed Oliver at this point in terms of he flashes and then he disappears. And again, maybe all of a sudden he becomes much more consistent and flashes all the time, but I think he kind of is who he is. And that's both good and bad. But I say that to say that's your best option on the interior for this year. On the edge, if you're going to get a true edge one, like pass rushing presence, bucket getter, I really do think the best option for that is Joey Bosa.
Yeah.
Given what he's been. And if it's not him, you're hoping Rousseau takes another jump in his game. Because I think Rousseau is, again, much more of an edge 2 than he is an edge 1 as a pass rusher. Now, what's interesting about all of it, there's a chance if Bosa's healthy and Rousseau makes a jump, you might have 2 edge 1s. But if Bosa gets hurt and Rousseau doesn't make a jump, you have no edge 1.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to cobble it together with a room of, Greg Rousseau, who's more of a two, and then it's Rousseau and Epinesa and Solomon and Landon Jackson. And there's a part of me that sees the defensive line and goes, man, this could be like a real quality unit with a lot of depth and a lot of rotation capability, and where you have a ton of just B and B plus players and maybe an A minus or two. This could be like a really good unit. And then there's another part of me that sits there and goes, this could be the exact same thing we've seen every single year the past several years, where they get blown
Yeah.
off the ball in the interior. They don't have somebody who can get you a bucket off the edge. And we're sitting here next year at this time, or next year in February or March, going, man, they really need defensive tackle help. And man, they really need edge help. Like, for a team that believes the defensive line is the engine and has said that, and McDermott and Bean have both been quoted as saying, like, we build out the team from the defense from the defensive line back.
Yeah.
They have a shit ton of defensive line questions every year. And it seems like they're not getting answered. You know what? I should backtrack it a bit, because Von Miller worked. Von Miller was the closer and was what he was supposed to be. And then he got hurt on Thanksgiving. Like, for as much as, but the bigger issue with that is, like, everybody's like, oh, it's because Von was washed or because he was old. No, he just happened to tear his ACL. Like, he was great before that. Part of the bigger issue I have with that is you put so many eggs into that one basket because you didn't have any other baskets.
Yeah.
And so that one basket broke. And you're like, well, shit, now we don't have anything to carry our eggs. And then you're chasing your tail year after year. And so that's a big one for me. Like, can you manufacture it with scheme? Like, is it, Nielsen's doing great and they've got some tweaks, and the way the front is working in general with defensive line and the linebackers, man, there's just so much schematic potential. Again, Nielsen did a lot of fun stuff with the Falcons in 2023, and their front did not have anywhere near the individual capability that the Bills have. Like, so if he could do it with the Falcons, I would like to think that he could do it with the Bills, because they have a better group and better capability. But for me, it really is right now like such a toss-up. Like, we could be sitting here being like, man, it really panned out. Or it could be like, well, TJ Sanders is getting blown off the ball. Larry Ogunjobi's getting blown off the ball. Landon Jackson has no lower body flexibility and can't do anything and just keeps getting stood up left and right. Groot didn't take a jump, and Joey Bosa played 4 games. And Ed Oliver keeps disappearing, and Daquan Jones looks long in the tooth, and Dwayne Carter is still the same guy he was last year, and Deion Walker's back is still a problem. Yeah. Like, that is literally a scenario. Or it could be the inverse, and it could be the positive or the ceiling side for all those. Like, it's variance. It's such and that variance, again, it's frustrating in a vacuum, but it pisses me off even more knowing that this team is so, like, the defensive, again, not to use the Eagles, because I think the Eagles are an unfair example, but we know the Eagles value their defensive line. And just look at all the assassins they've had on that defensive line over the years. And then the Bills do the same thing. That's why it's frustrating when fans are like, yo, the Bills need to do what the Eagles have done. They have been.
They are. They have Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio runs a very similar scheme.
The issue is they haven't hit on any of the guys they keep bringing up front. Like,
because they didn't blitz once in that Super Bowl, right?
No, they just rushed forward. They dared the Chiefs to be like, yo, we don't, like, they were literally like, we don't think your offensive line combination works. We think we can beat your tackles because you've got Tooney at left tackle when he's more of a guard. We think we could run through your right tackle. We think we can take care of your left guard, and we'll go from there. And then you've got, like, Nolan Smith, who's a quality rotational player, blowing up Trey Smith, who is now like the highest paid guard in NFL history.
Yep.
And Nolan Smith isn't even a regular starter. Again, I like Nolan Smith, but the point is, like, they didn't have like a top 6. They had like a top 8. You're just rotating sharks left and right. And it's like, oh, I wish the Bills could do that. The Bills do that. They just rush 4. Their 4 don't get there, or they do get there, or they have a chance and they win, and the coverage is shitty on the back end. And the coverage doesn't bail them out because there's no marriage there. And I'm so frustrated. I hate every year going into the offseason for the Bills being like, okay, for free agency in the draft, I got to watch a bunch of defensive tackles and edges because the Bills need defensive tackles and edges again. And it's like, how?
And they will next year too.
Yeah, because you just look at the contract.
I mean, I was going to say, because even if let's say the best case scenario,
hits.
and Sanders, Walker, and Carter are like all taking ascension. Doesn't matter because they still need another body in the room, so you're gonna have to watch him anyway.
And say the edges all hit. Epenesa's a UFA next year. Bosa's on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
That's why, and not all those positives are going to happen. So you're sitting here next year. You could be sitting here next year after this year where it's like, man, we have Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders, Dwayne Carter, and Deion Walker, and only Ed Oliver is a capable starter. And you could be doing the same thing at edge where it's like, man, we only have Greg Rousseau, Landon Jackson, and Javon Solomon under contract, and only Greg Rousseau is a capable edge. And it's just like,
if I may, to put a positive spin on this, because
positively too, it could be
it could work.
It's variance, like you said. It could be the positive end.
Yeah,
it could be the negative end, and it could be a multitude of possibilities in between.
I totally, and I'm not disagreeing at all because I'm aligned with you. It is a variant group. We don't know what it'll look like because really the range of outcomes is so vast because it's not just ability, it's also health, it's also age, it's everything that goes into how they constructed the room. I think personally, the room is a product of an active transition phase that isn't complete with their D-line, hence all the youth infusion, hence 1-year deals to finalize what they'll probably end up doing next season where they'll draft more talent for the room. It's not done yet, but that doesn't mean it can't work. However, it does mean that even if it works or doesn't work, it still needs work next season regardless. So
I was laughing because I was like, watch him trade for Trey Hendrickson. And then I was like, watch him do it right now. Like right as we're done recording this offline. And it's like they trade for Trey Hendrickson at like midnight. And it's just this episode is useless.
If it happens, I'm happy. Because at least I made it happen. That was my will. My show made that happen. So I'll take it. But I'm putting a very close eye on Javon Solomon. Not because I think
he's looked good. He moves really nice and he's got really good hand. This is going to sound stupid and I hate saying this. Like he looks like he should be a good football player. Like he just like the way he's built, the way he moves. He looks the part. We just got to see what happens when the pads come on.
I mean, what was it? 16 and a half sacks in his senior year. If I remember, he had a crazy number.
All jokes aside, like not even to be like unserious or sarcastic. I don't remember because it was so many.
Yeah.
Like he lived in the backfield.
He looked good when you watched him. And my thing was last year in very, very limited sample sizes, there were flashes from him. You saw
he played the run very well. Like the pass rush stuff, I think could be more flash in the pan based on what we saw last year.
Right.
His run defense going all the way back to the preseason was sound. Like his athleticism played, his physicality, and his like reading of it. And that's a huge piece considering he's undersized.
Yes. I'm very bullish on him. Fair. Only because I think the limitation is literally how many snaps he gets. And if Joey Bosa and Greg Rousseau and them are healthy, even though it's a rotation, I don't think he's going to get a large portion of the snap share. I think what he is a true pass rush specialist, and he's going to nail the role. Like, I think he'll do quite well in it, and he's someone I'm really excited for because everything I just talked about on the side of Ryan Nielsen and what he could bring to this game. Imagine just wide out Javon Solomon crashing in and funneling in and what he could do with how quickly he can get off the line and how he can displace people with his hands. I really like him. I liked him last year. I liked watching him. I was very realistic about what it could look like in year one. I'm looking forward to a year two of Javon Solomon. And yes, the defensive line has a ton of variance and it very well could be sour, right? It could fall apart. It could be the same routine that it's kind of been the past couple of years where this player did well, but it wasn't enough because either someone got hurt or someone didn't live up to the hype. I'm not expecting 17 games of Joey Bosa. I'm just not. I think there's going to be games without him or in a very limited role, despite the snap count limitations that they said they're going to do for him. But it's variant because also there's a plus side with your young players developing. We could see TJ Sanders and that upfield nature of his actually come into fruition very quickly and maybe sound run defense to boot, which to me, it just takes one of these guys to trickle down to the rest. I'm not saying it's going to make everyone an all pro, but like the development of Sanders or even like a Stephen Rousseau or one of these guys. And I said this last year, you were on the show when I said it. One of these guys is like a slight multiplier for the others. And that's just what I need. I just need to see one flash because I think that can bring you more stability. It can build more to you and what you're doing. And again, more creative usage of your interior defensive line, of your edge rushers from Ryan Nielsen with one of these guys ascending could be a very good combination. And it's why I'm watching it as number one.
And we should also mention, he's suspended for the first 6 games. I do think Michael Hoyt
Mm,
brings a lot of schematic potential and chess piecery to this defensive line. I just like, not that I'm not including him in the conversation, but I think he's best suited when you're taking advantage of him schematically. And so I don't count him as a true edge because I don't want him just to be a true edge. Like if they just use him as like a in the edge rotation, he's just rushing off the edge like anybody
ugh,
else. I'm gonna be so pissed
yeah.
because he should be used how he was in LA or how like Clay Matthews was in Green Bay, like that spinner type of role. So I don't count him as like a true edge player, but he does factor in and give them multiplicity and usage up
Mhm.
front. So that's somebody who I think like also gives them the opportunity to be successful and vary and multiple this year, regardless of if he's suspended 6 games or not. It's just a matter of how they use him and truly unlock him. I have to think they're going to use him how they used him in LA. It
Yeah.
would be wild to bring him in and just be like, nope, it's just going to be like you and AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau and Joey
Well,
Bosa off
especially
the edge.
because they saw him firsthand when they played Los Angeles being used in a multitude of ways. I mean, how could you even watch that and assume that this guy's just going to be a locked in edge rusher for you? But also, wouldn't would it surprise you if they did that? Because it wouldn't surprise me if they
It
boxed him in.
it
It,
would it would. I'm going to talk on both sides of my mouth. It would surprise me because I think they're very good at bringing in people that fit their archetype. And if you don't fit their archetype, they don't bring you in. So if you're
yeah.
like best as like a 3-4 hybrid player, they don't play that. So they're probably not going to bring you in. So it would surprise me because of that. But it also wouldn't surprise me because they don't do the stuff that the Rams did or that Michael Hoyt does. Now, they haven't really had a player like that since back to
Yeah.
like Lorenzo Alexander potentially at the beginning of McDermott's tenure. And this also could be the reason that they did it was because, they're like, you know what, we haven't done that kind of stuff and we need to do more of that kind of stuff. And, hey, we have Ryan Nielsen and hey, we have guys who can take advantage of that more. So on the one hand, it wouldn't surprise me. On the other hand, it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that would send me for a loop because I've said this so much. Like I watched a lot of Rams tape offensively and defensively last year. That's because I really love Kobe Turner. And
Mm,
I just kept noticing that like 97 kept popping in all these different games in all these different ways. And I was like, I knew his like name, but I didn't know how to pronounce it. And I was like, I got to start paying attention more to this dude. And then he was a UFA and he was tops on my, free agent list. And then they signed him and I was like, oh, this is perfect. And then I was like, watch it not be perfect because they're just going to do the most boring thing with
yeah.
him. And it's going to be
I
terrible.
hope. I really hope it's not. And we'll have to see. But this defensive line room is number one for both of us and for good reason because a successful revamping of the room means, in my opinion, a successful defense. And I think it solves a problem they've had for so many years of just being a definitively closing group. And I think they have potential for it. But it's not a guarantee just because, again, of how many question marks lie above these players. A lot of them from inexperience, some from injury and age, some from just very slow development. I will say with Greg Rousseau, I picked him to break out, and I picked him to break out because of Nielsen's presence and some of the additions to the D line to a point where even if he has to be like not Superman, but like I'm using a Fortnite term because I've been watching my girlfriend play a ton of Fortnite, but she eats that thing that turns her into Superman. Like, if that's what Rousseau's got to be, where he eats the scheme to become Superman, as long as we got someone making the plays, we got it. So I'll take it, but that's the biggest one. But I do want to close the show out, Amp, by talking about what was my number two, and it was on your list as well, but it's play action usage because you and I have spoken about this many times. And
We've
when the
DM'd about this so much.
yeah, when the Seattle game happened, we talked about it. Because that to me that is my favorite game of the season from last season. I thought that was when the offense looked just the most cohesive. It was a healthy blend of play action and then some lineup out of the shotgun and just getting creative with how they were using their tight ends. And Knox and Kincaid were involved. Coleman was involved. It was realized. It was beautiful. And then they just dipped away from it and hardly used it at a higher rate than that game. They finished 27th in play action rate, but they were still so immensely successful when they ran play action. What I want to see is an uptick in play action usage, and you have seen it at camp, Anthony, which is why I put it on this list. What it can do for this offense when you talk about the threat of your rushing attack now being bolstered by your passing attack gaining a multiplier from it because now these looks are creating space. You're holding the ball. You play into the favor of the separators that can already generate space, but now find soft spots. Or Keon Coleman, who might struggle with separation, but can now find space because of the time he gets. Or Josh Allen being able to go get a bucket himself because he does really well in off script plays, and he'll have the time and a deeper pocket to assess the field and go off script. Everything about play action is just a net positive for this team. The fact that they are showing it, be it early in camp, but that they are showing it. And last year, when you were there and Eric were there, and you guys talked about how they were running different types of motion and they were kind of more static years prior, and then they did run a bit more motion the following year, granted not most in the league, but a higher rate. I think this could be an indicator of a higher rate of PA, and that is going to be a massive push for the offense. So, Ant, final topic. Let's close out the show with your thoughts on play action usage and what you're expecting.
It was just criminal that they didn't do it more last year. I know it's a stupid thing to nitpick and complain about, considering how good they were last year and they have the MVP at quarterback, but they had a really good running game and they were 27th in play action at a rate of 18%. Like, that's just, that's having a good run game should lead to play action. And it's like literally taking candy from a baby, especially for a passing attack that struggled at times in structure and struggled at times with separation and struggled at times with chunk plays and getting the ball downfield. Play action is a good way to not necessarily manufacture that, but create that a little bit. And you've got this really athletic moose of a quarterback that you can put on the run with bootlegs and different stuff. And it just all makes too much sense. Like, it really does. Like, you hear it like, when you start watching football as a little kid, like every announcer at some point says like, oh, the run game is working. That's really going to open up a play action. And it was like, yeah, it does. And it will. And then the Bills were like, no, I'm just not going to do it. And it's like, well, why would you not do that thing? And it's been a lot of play action these first couple of days, especially today on day 2. Like, it was a lot of play action, a lot of under center, straight drop back play action and bootlegs. And I found that very, very, very encouraging. And I knew you would like that because you and I have talked about it so much, not even just like on the timeline on Twitter, like in the DMs, we have talked about it so much. And you being like, why do you think they're not doing it? And I'm just like yelling back in all caps, like, I don't know, but I'm not happy. Like, it's just what it's.
And it's valid frustration.
It is. And there's not a lot of places that they need to tweak or where they can go with this offense. So in a dream world, give me more play action and more pistol. I don't think the pistol is necessarily going to happen. So just give me more play action. And if today was an indicator, we may be getting that. Again, breadcrumbs, fingers crossed, no jinx.
If I had to choose one of the two, I'm choosing play action. I don't know if it was because maybe they just wanted to slowly work up to it. And maybe when they were installing things for the playbook, it was Josh who said, maybe I'm just not crazy about lining up under center and having to turn around. I know some quarterbacks like to be static. I'm not saying he does, but maybe it was like, I would prefer to maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was just slowly working up to it. Maybe it wasn't that, and they had it, and they just didn't want to dial it up as often.
And I don't know great off play action. I always thought, like, the thing I've always said, like, play action, even when he was struggling mechanically, play action has a way of kind of like resetting his mechanics for him when he could like hit that run fake and hit the top of his drop and bounce and set and like flow through. Like, again, most quarterbacks do better off play action in general from a statistics perspective, but I thought for him, it would reset him mechanically a bit. And he's really good, like with ball handling and selling the run fake. I
think so much, and it's almost deja vu that I'm saying it again, but like, I think so much about the Packers too, because I just found like what the Bills are running, not verbatim, it's not the same exact scheme, but what they could be like an even distribution offense that has a heavy, powerful rushing attack with a quarterback who's running a ton of play action and does really well off of it. Like, the way that the Packers have kind of built up Jordan Love, who I think is a very good quarterback, but also one of the best pure deep ball throwers in the league, I feel like a big part of that has come from the fact of how reliant they are on play action and what it's done for them. And I think for the Bills, we talk a lot about Josh Allen's deep ball accuracy being still a lingering issue, especially in the context of like Dalton Kincaid analysis. And I'm not saying that it's an automatic improvement, but I do think giving Josh Allen the opportunity to take a deeper drop, see the field a smidge more cleanly, and maybe feel more confident in delivering downfield throws if he's got a guy open, that might be the remedy you need. I mean, again, that Seattle game, those play action shots of 20 plus yards were really successful to Dawson Knox and to Keon Coleman. And in the time they did it against Jacksonville to Keon Coleman, and like just so many examples of it working. that I just don't understand why they don't do it more. And I think it's on this list because it's not just, a gimmick for the offense. It's not just a wrinkle. It's a legitimately like pass offense altering variation that you can run that I think for some of the lapses the Bills have had against really touted defenses like Houston, for example, who they will be seeing again, or the early Baltimore game, they're seeing them week 1, or
the
even
Houston
like
one was huge, man. The running game was working. I kept being like, oh, like there's another
hold the
first down on
ball.
the run. Yep. Let's go
Yeah.
play action on first down. And it was like, nope, we're just going to keep
And I
running
think
and
it was,
keep running.
wasn't it like their lowest rate of the season, or maybe one of their like bottom 5 lowest rates of the season? It had to have been, because it felt like they didn't run it at all. But that's what I'm saying. Like you're going to be facing good man coverage defenses. While I like the improvements or adjustments they've made to their offense when it comes to receiving core and the skill sets, it's not a guarantee that works. But help that transition become a little more smooth. Run more play action, open yourself up to more opportunities for free space, more time for Josh Allen, especially if you have a rushing attack that, in my opinion, has been proven to work against really any front, even ones as talented as Houston, Baltimore, Kansas City. That to me is the bread and butter. That to me is what I think would transform your passing attack, and a passing attack that's already the part of one of the best offenses in football with an MVP quarterback. It seems like a layup. Seems like an easy thing to do, and I'm very happy that they're doing it at camp. I really hope they keep it up. I just do, because this is something that I think, like, for offense, especially when you talk about Keon Coleman's development. Is there a ceiling that can be broken for Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, all these guys, Dalton Kincaid? Like, we can create opportunity by doing this.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I looked up that play action rate. I don't know if it was their lowest on the year, but again, their average for the year was 18%, which was 27th in the league. That week 5 game against the Texans, their play action rate was 12.9.
Disgusting.
So 5.1 percentage points.
And they were struggling the whole game. Like Josh Allen was 9 for 22 in that game. Where was it? Like, you needed it. It never made sense to me. And they were dealing with injury. Khalil Shakir was out in that game, but like, I'm sorry, man. That's not an excuse. Next man up. I think Jalen Virgil was active. I think they might have still had MVS. I don't remember. But that doesn't mean you can't run it. And like, it doesn't mean you can't give it a shot.
They found success with the running with the run game. Run play action off that. Your passing game is struggling. Yeah, just figure out a way. And it just seemed, again, that was one to me that it really seemed like I kept sitting there waiting, like, oh, okay, now they're going to use the play action. Now they're going to take a shot. And the Texans kept just being like, no, we're going to load the box and like try and stop the run. And the Bills are like, all right, cool. We're just going to keep running it. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense at all.
None.
I don't understand what we're doing.
And all we can hope is that they run it more. I think they will. I think everything that we've discussed in this episode, for the good and bad that we've discussed, I think it's either option has a very realistic path, but I'm going to, for the sake of not having an existential crisis live, choose the positive side until I'm proven otherwise, which, yeah, it leads to heartbreak. But in all seriousness, I do believe in the changes that the Bills have made on offense, on defense. I do believe that they are cognizant of their faults and are trying to improve on them. It is a matter of just execution and whether the personnel or the adjustments you're making to your schemes can pan out in the regular season against tough competition that you're going to see on your schedule this year. But I'm really excited, and just seeing some of the tangible proof that those changes are happening, whether it's to a major or minor degree, that's reassuring, because I think this team is they're not out of, contention. They're very much in the hunt for a Super Bowl, just like the top flight of the AFC still. I think minor tweaks is all we were asking for. I think there is, again, realistic path to them making those tweaks and getting over that hump. And we're going to find out more in the coming weeks, because football's back, and I have not been this happy since football. Well, actually, since the Ravens week, because I would say since football ended, but that was a really sad week. So the Ravens week, I was really happy. So I'll say about that. But, Ant, any final thoughts? Any last thing you want to say before we sign off for the night?
No, this is awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the hell out of you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you being here again, guys. At @pro__Ant. That's 2 underscores. Don't forget it. You can catch him every once in a blue moon here, but also every Tuesday night on Disguised Coverage, and every Wednesday or Monday or Tuesday or Thursday, Friday or Saturday or Sunday on the Film Room, depending on when these guys go live. It's really fun finding that out. Shout out to Eric Turner.
Same. That's the way we just whatever we can figure it out. It's tough, man. And then especially with the Bills having like Sunday game, Thursday game, Monday game. It's going to be, I was about to say like, oh, regular season will be every Wednesday. And then I was like, they have a bunch of non-Sunday games. So we'll see.
We will see. But you could catch Ant on any one of those days. But check out Disguise coverage if you guys haven't. It's a tremendous show. Ant does excellent work. Just one of the brightest minds in our space and someone that you'll learn a lot from. I learn a lot from him. It's why I get him on the show, because I love talking ball with him. And I only wish to have a half of his knowledge. But I think I'm at like 0.0001%, which is better than I was last week. So, Ant, thank you for being here. I appreciate the heck out of you. For me, guys, my name is Joe DeRosa. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. I have no idea what day I plan on having this go. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. You don't even know what tomorrow or the day after is. We never said what day it was. That's the cool part of pre-recording a show. Maybe we did say what day it was. I don't know.
I think I said today was day 2 of practice. But if I didn't, then I did now. You can cut this part out.
But that's fine. They also would have to think about it more. So I like the mystique of that, even though they will find out. But everybody, thank you so much. For those people that are signed up to the One Pass, we appreciate the heck out of you. If you are not signed up for the One Pass, check the description. The link to sign up is there. $60 a year gets you exclusive access to our premium Discord, as well as some other awesome perks, including a collaborative shirt that we made with 26 shirts. It is awesome, and you should check it out. Check out the content on our network. Subscribe to the other shows. Subscribe to the channel. Your sub to the One Pass, to our YouTube, to everything, and your engagement helps this channel so much. So thank you a ton for your time, for your attention. We hope you're happy football's back, because we are extremely hyped, and we are going to continue to be hyped. I will be back. Ant will be back. But for tonight, I'm going to say have a fantastic evening, because I'm about to go see that movie, and I'm so
you're
excited.
You're going to go watch X-Men.
Yeah.
That's it. That's one.
Maybe.
That's the one, right?
I don't. With the Marvel universe.
They do this, right? That's them. That's
yeah,
X-Men,
dude.
Right?
Yeah. I love the things catchphrase. It's thinging time. It's amazing. It's so cool, dude.
He's just always thinging. Thing's always thinging. Oh, where's the thing? Thinging.
He's just thinging, man.
He's
just doing thing stuff.
He's
just torching.
Yeah, he's just torching.
Dude, he's Mr. Fantastic's just doing. He's all right. It's been a rough couple months for Mr. Fantastic. He's not. He's just all right, I guess. But
the Fantastic Four does absolutely nothing for me. I don't know
really?
why. I've never given 2 craps about it.
Oh, no.
And as like as a wrestling fan, they keep doing this, and that's what the 4 Horsemen do. So I'm like, hey, Fantastic Four, you need to like slow your roll. But yeah, they've never.
That's crazy to me.
The thing is just a rock, and then Human Torch is just on fire. Invisible Woman's invisible, I guess. Mr. Fantastic is smart, but also rubber. I don't know. That's why I thought it was mad funny. In the second Doctor Strange, when John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic is there for 2 minutes, and Scarlet Witch is like,
and he gets annihilated. We're gonna have an offline conversation about my gripe with that scene, by the way, because I was actually ranting about this to my girlfriend about why that scene pissed me off. But I do like that movie. But besides the point, everybody, enjoy the rest of your evening. We will see you soon. Fantastic, and as always, go Bills. Take care, everybody.